If Rick and Morty has taught me anything, it's never trust a Jerry. Grossi Posse Packer Nation, welcome to another episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I am your host, Tom Grossi, and today we are going to be taking a look at a highly requested defensive player, defensive tackle to be specific, and that is Jerry Tillery. That's just a pleasant name. But let's talk about him today. Before we get to that, I want to do a big shout out and thank you to all those patrons over at patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy. Had to make 2 slides now for the credits as the Grossi Posse continues to grow one day to world domination. But check out patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy for some cool rewards. And if you would like to support me, a big thank you for all those who already do. Now, Tillery. This guy, he's divisive. I think that's the easiest word to describe him, in that some people are absolutely in love with him, which, judging by previous comments that I have received, is a bunch of you, and some people are like, there's a lot to be desired. But let's take a gander at his stats, and then we'll get into the whole story. In 2015, played 6 games, had 9 solo tackles, 2 of them for a loss, had a sack. You know, neither here nor there. That was fine. 2016, played 11 games, 19 solo tackles, 3.5 for a loss. Didn't have any sacks that year. But in 2017, where he really started to emerge, 13 games, 25 solo tackles, 9 for a loss, 4.5 sacks, and a forced fumble. And then following it up in 2018 with 12 games played, 17 solo tackles, 8.5 for a loss, and 7 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. In addition, Tillery's stock went up a bit because of the NFL Combine, running a 4.93 40-yard dash, doing 23 reps, had a 7.45 3-cone, and a 4.33 20-yard shuttle. Now, it was just revealed within this past week that, according to an interview with ESPN, Tillery actually played the final 8 games of 2018 with a torn labrum in his right shoulder. And he still had his best season, and he also participated in the Combine before the surgery that he received on March 6th. And so, real quick, just going to get the injury thing out of the way. There's 2 things that I grabbed from this. 1, he's supposed to be all healed up by July, which means that he is going to miss some of those off-season workouts, which could hurt his draft stock. But 2, hot damn, the fact that you're benching and you're getting 23 reps, and you're doing all that with a torn labrum in your shoulder, that takes some guts and some fortitude. And so I think that's actually a check, a win in my book. But before we even get down to looking at his tape and things like that, the thing that I kept seeing over and over again were his potential off and on the field issues. And so he's been a known partier, a bad locker room presence, and that his teammates just flat out didn't like him. In 2016, he was suspended for the Fiesta Bowl for violating team rules. He had 2 dirty plays against USC finishing out that season. And so I looked at that, and I was like, oh no, the Packers are already going to be like, that's going to be a no for me, dog, considering that the Packers usually don't go after guys who have, I don't want to say character issues, but, often on the field issues. They like drama-free stuff, as indicated by that Bleacher Report article. But it seems that Tillery has turned it around. So after his sophomore season in 2016, his head coach made him go to anger management counseling, participate in community service, and then the following year, he led Notre Dame in sacks and also in QB pressures with 11, and he seems to have really turned it around. The interview with ESPN, I highly recommend seeking it out. I can put it in the description if you're interested. The guy he's a smart guy. They refer to him as a renaissance man, one who's doing it all, and he has a lot of ambition. He's like, listen, I know there's a lot of defensive guys in this draft. He goes, I don't want to just be one of the best. I want to be the best. I want Pro Bowls. I want gold jackets. And so it seems that, he's got football on the mind, in that he really just wants to excel and be the very best. And I think that kind of attitude is absolutely admirable and actually shows a lot of maturity. And not just his words, but the fact that he also came back for his senior year in Notre Dame instead of declaring for the draft last year, I think also shows that, listen, like he had some room for growth, both emotionally and also physically. And I think I'm good with that. Like I think that his off the field issues, how he's played for the past 2 seasons, having his 2 best seasons near the end of his college football career, kind of signifies that he's turned it around a little bit. And like I said, that interview with ESPN kind of alleviated any of my concerns with his character. Now, let's look, of course, at the most important thing, because if nice guys were in the NFL and that's what we drafted them on, there'd be a lot of fedoras in the NFL. So right now, he's projected early second round, even if maybe potentially even the end of the first round if someone's reaching for him. I know that the Saints recently had him in for an interview, and he's okay with the pass rush. He's had about 12 sacks in the past 4 years. He has pretty good hands, though. He's able to clog the lanes. He's able to clog the running lanes, obviously, because the guy is 6'6" and 295 pounds. He's pretty good against the run, and he has definitely a lot of potential. Looking at some of his tape, he had a really great game against Stanford and also against Michigan, whether it was getting to the ball carrier and being able to shed some blocks. Now, the thing that I did see more times than I would like to, you'll see this in the Michigan tape, for example. This is kind of like the summary of the concerns regarding Jerry Tillery, is that man is inconsistent. If he was consistent, he's going in the first round, potentially middle of the first round. But his inconsistency is what's killing him. And a lot of different reports that I was looking at, they classified that as lack of motivation, lack of effort. I saw him get eaten up by a bunch of blocks. So like some of the bigger offensive linemen were able to push him around a bit. And considering that he is such a big guy, that is a little bit concerning. And the highlights that I actually was going and looking at are mostly from 2 games. It's from Stanford and Michigan. And I think the reason is because like the middle of the season, he kind of drops off a little bit. He finished pretty strong, but the consistency is really where I have the biggest concern. And so it's not really the character issues, it's more of the production or lack thereof. So I think he definitely has a bunch of potential, but he definitely needs the right coaching staff around him. I think Notre Dame proved that, right? So he was going on a path that wasn't ideal. His coach was like, here you go. I'm going to raise you up. I'm going to make a man out of you. That's like the 3rd Mulan reference in the past 2 weeks, and I'm not going to stop. And so I think for Green Bay, first of all, I don't want him at 30. I got to be completely and totally honest. I would rather address this position earlier, either at number 12 or pick somebody else at 30, because I feel like he is going to be a project. And I feel also that a team is going to reach on him because he is 6'6". Because of his measurables, I think they're going to wind up reaching for him. So if he's there in the 2nd round, do the Packers take a shot at him? Because he can play defensive end. He could play nose tackle. He could, and again, with Mike Daniels, eventually, this will be his most likely final year in Green Bay. We could use someone at the position. I like his drive. I like his focus. I like that idea of he's kind of got this redemption and able to turn it around. It's like I'm torn on him right now. I'm not going to lie. Like, there's a part of me that says, take a chance on him. But then there's another part of me that says, hey, the 2nd round is too early for you to take a chance on someone, because I feel like this guy is either going to be, a guy who could be a Pro Bowler and that he could reach that potential. But then I'm watching a lot of this tape and he's just there on a bunch of plays, and that he's getting swallowed up by tackles. He's missing runs. If he's there in the 2nd round, I wouldn't mind taking a shot on him. I think he's going to be a project. I think he needs a lot of coaching. I think he needs a lot of hand-holding. But I think that ESPN interview put me over the edge. I want to let you know that I have re-recorded this about 6 times, changing my mind, either saying, don't take him or take him. And that's how split I am on him. I think, again, while some of you are really, really high on him and saying to pick him at 30, I do disagree with that. I don't want to reach into the 1st round to grab him. I think there's a bunch of other players that we could get. If he's there in the second round, hell, take a shot on him. Take a shot on him. I don't think it'd be the end of the world, but know that he's going to need some help. That's my final answer. That's my final answer. Take a shot on Tillery if he's there in the second round. I'm going to change my answer like 6 times before this episode ends. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com, TOMGROSI Comedy, at Tom Grossi Comedy on all the social medias that you see below, including Patreon. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, and of course here on YouTube multiple times per week. I'll see you tomorrow with another episode. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, go Pack, go.